Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Saturday night sci-fi Shadow Chat. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the depths of space and all the big old giant things that we've seen in science fiction and fantasy, and heck, even horror has its own versions of giant critters, monsters, creatures that seem to be able to live in the depths of space for whatever reason. They evolved out there. They grew up out there. They decided upon themselves to go out into space and to travel and seek out new worlds and I was talking to some folks about it. Yes, Raven, I remember that. It was funny to me for a completely different reason than I thought of. Obviously, that what's up, Mercurius, and of course, Doodle Squatch. Welcome to the show, guys. I'll be bringing some guests in later. Just I wanted to get the usual beginnings out. Um, it occurred to me that there were things all the way back in the Next Generation Star Trek, Tinman, that big old creature, as well as the other things that were in Star Trek, feeding off the nacelles of the Enterprise, as well as even though I never saw it, I got the impression that Farscape's ship was also one of those sort of giant creatures that lived out in space. There was, obviously the Tyranids from Games Workshop. Their horde of bio monsters that just made new creatures, but their ships were living creatures. And I mentioned horror, and anyone who knows the gaming genres out there, Call of Cthulhu is just chock full of giant 400-foot tall or bigger creatures that seem to have no problem traversing space without a ship. Heck, even the lore and mythos around Godzilla is full of giant creatures that could, apparently fly from planet to planet out in the depths of space. And then here on Earth, we have these things, tardigrades, these little microscopic critters that can live in any environment, extremophiles, I believe they call them, that probably lend credence to the fact that there might be creatures out there in space living out, in the asteroids or around other planets that don't need all the things that us, puny humans need, water and air and gravity and, all those silly things that seem to make life possible here on this world. Out of this world models and minis, welcome to the show. I don't believe we've met before, but like I said, welcome to the show. Mercurius, glad to see you here again. RPG Grandma, I sent you the link. If you want to talk about big old space critters, and there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah, I'm sure you got the message. Doodle says, some spiders have evolved to trap a bubble of air, which they use to dive down into the water. Space creatures would need to be big enough to bring their environment with them. Maybe. Nerds, what's happening? Right. And there's also the Minox from Star Wars, those things that lived in the asteroid that the Millennium Falcon flew inside of. There's just all kinds of them. But I've been wondering, because in my fantasy game universe, I actually have the dragons that there are breeds of dragons, sort of, that live out in space and on the moons and things like that. Because I want kaiju sized dragons. Who doesn't, right? Well, my player characters, that's probably who doesn't want them. But tough, they're getting them anyways, and why the heck not? This is a game of imagination, And I know there's a lot of schools of thought where, you know, that are not fond of the Gonzo mentality, but here in the Shadow and Sun show, we embrace Gonzo. Always have, always will. Uh, the only limits are your imagination and some vestiges of logic try to creep their ugly heads into my games, but we just smack them down and get on with the fun, rule of cool and all that sort of thing. But I wanted to talk about how you guys would do it if you do it. If you think it's too gonzo, you think it's too crazy. If since this is normally a sci-fi show, I was wondering, do you have big old critters out there that cause havoc? I remember back in the old days, back not that far back, guys. Just cutting off the old man jokes. Uh, but back in Starfleet Battles, the original game, there were big old creatures that you could put on the battlefield to cause problems with your ship or fleet or what have you. Sometimes the player could just play one and that would be the game, or sometimes it would just be like a thing that would get in the way of your two factions trying to duke it out with, you know, the Federation and Klingons and that sort of thing. And I thought, you know what, let's talk about it. Let's see if we can, add some more meat to that bone that is our sci-fi games, because I'm a huge fan, even though most of what goes on in the community is fantasy. And in fantasy, we've got our dragons, we've got dinosaurs, we've got the Tarask, we've got all kinds of just ridiculously large creatures that our players have to deal with in one fashion or another. I thought, you know what, let's bring them out into space. Mountain dragons? You mean dragons that live in mountains? No, no, dragons the size of exactly. And I'm not the only person who has their own version of what I call star dragons. And uh, I've run a lot of sci-fi games that have things like sorcery and magic and big giant creatures. Why not? You're whether it be a traveler game or a Star Trek game or something like that, and you're out in the depths of space and you pick something up on the scope, so to speak, and it's moving right at you, and maybe it's looking for a free lunch, maybe it's got other motives to investigate what you are, and vice versa. Next thing you know, you're looking at something that's looking back at you, but it's not a ship. It's got actual eyeballs, and it's what do you do? How would you handle it? Would you even bother putting something like that in your game? I think it's a nice change of pace. Have something to deal with. Have maybe who knows? Maybe you make a new friend. Maybe you get a pet. Maybe you have to run for your lives because it wants to eat you or something less pleasant. And I think it's again, Gonzo. It's a kind of a Gonzo idea, but it also it's in Discord. But Grandma, I can just put it in here, and if anybody else comes in besides Grandma without permission, I will just kick them to the curb. We're not going to have any repeats of previous episodes. Here we go, Grandma. Grandma's a great lady. Uh, there you go, Grandma. If you need it somewhere else, I can put it back in Discord, but you know me, I'll probably screw that up and delete the show or something. It's not like it hasn't happened before, folks. Actually, it's happened a couple of times. Kick myself from my own show. But speaking of kicking themselves from their own show, the Dungeon Damsel, she was over on Bear's show, and I was hanging out with Bear. And I want to thank all you nice people for subscribing to us. We got 10 new subscribers today, which has been the most we've had in a long, long time for reasons. Grandma, how you doing?
Doing okay. Got the I don't know what it is with SteamYard recently in my stuff. Hold on a second. Let me get
No worries, Grandma.
the
Grandma's got some cool stuff in her background. Look at this. I don't know what that painting is, but that's pretty neat looking. Give her a minute. So, what do you guys think out there in chats? What's up, Edgar? I am totally ready for the solar eclipse. I was watching some videos on it, of course, because I'm an idiot and I need one more thing to be afraid of. I guess I don't know, but I'm not going to worry about it. If something bad happens, I'll just deal with it like I do everything else. So, how you doing, Grandma?
I'm doing good. You guys want to know about the painting? Let's see if I can.
Yeah. Why not?
This
show never stays on course. Yeah. What is that?
Oh, let's just pull. So, can you see that it's got like an arch?
Yes.
That is a landscape picture that's filled up with the landscape aspects with these folk art animals. And she's actually a famous painter, folk art painter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a
That's pretty
family
cool.
heirloom. And there's a Navajo thing over here. They're all family heirloom things.
I've got a few of those. I got a couple of new ones I've been adding to the collection, like you saw with Thursday night's show. With Jackie being part of the Arduin team. That's just. I went out looking for a picture frame today. Forget about it. Oh my God. What is it? 39 by, so let's say 40 inches by 30 and a half inches, 31 inches. I don't know what I'm talking about unless I want, like a $200 picture frame. I'm like, come on, guys, just give me a poster frame. But nope. Picture frames are crazy price these days too. And I always go to Hobby Lobby because every 2 weeks they're on sale, but no luck. I'll have to go back next week.
Yeah, I'm down for them now.
They normally have this section of like poster frames. They're kind of cheap, maybe $10-$20, but they didn't have anything even half that size. Mercurius says maybe a space dragon going to eat the sun. Sure, why not? I don't really have a limit on size other than they got to be giant, So for us humans, anything, 12, 15 feet tall, like the Anunnaki. Yes, I did finally get around to watching half of the new Wi files and then falling asleep for like 20 minutes and missing the other half. But what do you think about it, Grandma? Would you ever throw stuff like that at your players in a sci-fi game? Have you thrown things like that?
Sci-fi game? Well, it's not uncommon for me to repurpose fantasy monsters. So yeah, I've done it. Like
giant space amoebas, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, all that's on the table, man. Your spaceship comes out of off course, out of fast and light jump or whatever, because the dice said so. All kinds of things could happen, including, oh, you found a space amoeba.
Right, and I know Star Trek alone has probably had 3 to 5 big bad things or whatever, just problems or absolutely evil things living out in space that don't need a ship. And that was just going by the original series and Next Gen. After that, I kind of
crystalline entity will ruin your day.
Oh my God, I forgot about that one. Oh my God, that's a great
that
one.
Thing's huge.
That is a great. That's a great example.
Cleaner of space.
I always thought of the Doomsday Machine. We used to call it the cornucopia of death. As a creature, I know it really wasn't, but
that darn whale probe. That was a planet.
The thing that was feeding off the nacelles. There was even that evil entity where they got trapped inside it, and it was just like all like negative energy, but it had an actual intelligence to it. Doodle Squatch says, what about a swarm of creatures that hook together and fly through space? Size will not be an issue unless they reach critical mass. Maybe that's how the PCs defeat them. I remember something like that in a Doctor Who episode, which I actually used, where when they got to like enough creatures, then they would like create through this swarming wormhole thing a portal to the next world to go and devour.
Oh, yeah. He was on that one trash planet or whatever it was. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and it was.
And
also the ones where they lived in the shadows.
like me.
The library planet.
I don't think I saw that. If it was
Oh,
after David
that was
Tennant,
good and creepy because when a person's shadow disappears, they've been consumed, and so it's just their skeleton that's in their clothes or their spacesuit or whatever.
I remember
Yet
the one
these
with the
things can
gas
talk.
masks, and the other one with the with the like I said, if it was after David Tennant, I gave up on Doctor Who. What they did with Rose Tyler and the Doctor just killed me. I mean, it broke my heart for the poor Doctor. He finally found love, and then they screw him
Well,
over.
then they never went back to certain things too. You're like, okay, he has a daughter. What happened with that? Or
Well, apparently, I remember. You remember that actress who was in ER, the British lady who I couldn't stand. She sort of had reddish hair, and it turned out that she was like the only one who knew the doctor's name because
yeah.
she was his great love, whatever.
Mhm.
And they were trying to allude to that it wasn't Rose, which I'm like, seriously, whatever. But
Yeah, it got weird and convoluted. The
I
writing.
like I said, I gave up with
Well, he had
with the
that
way they.
clone where he got cloned, but turned into on one planet, and it came out because they're warriors, and that's what how they were making new people was, and she came out a girl, but if she's cloned, then she would be a Time Lord, and so he has a daughter back on this planet that he doesn't know about. And then I don't know, did we ever find out in the earlier series what happened to his granddaughter? I mean, she gets left on a planet with her boyfriend, and then that's it. I don't think they ever tell you anything after that. So in theory, Time Lords aren't extinct. They're just kind of like a couple of them floating around out there. But they have all these threads that they never seem to go back to, which
Well,
seems
that's what
like it would
happens
be a
when
gold mine.
you've got a lot of diversity hires and equity and inclusion hires, and you don't actually love and adore the franchise. Which I mean, let's face it, that franchise went on. Uh,
Oh, yeah, it's an off
you
and
know,
on thing.
yeah. Well, I realize that, but I mean, Doctor Who fans are legion, and
Silence in the
in the
library.
library.
Yep, that out of the world model. See, this is how I have to find out
I
what's going
never
on.
I guarantee I never saw that one
Yeah,
unless it
that's a
was
good creepy one. That's a good creepy one.
unless it was David Tennant or Christopher Eccleston or anybody prior to that. I probably didn't see it.
Yeah, everyone's like backed up, teleported into the computer. So it's kind of like a Star Trek episode where they got everybody in the buffer too. So
And Doodle, I don't think everything's been done. We're close. I do believe we're getting close to that point, but I think uh, with folks like us here, we can come up with some new ideas, or at least new ideas for our circle of friends. Things they've never encountered or experienced in their gaming life, and I hope to breathe some new life into old games. That's why I did the whole top secret thing. As much as
well,
people,
Jim was working on the 50th anniversary of Metamorphosis Alpha.
Jim Ward,
Ward, yeah, before he died, and he has there was a person working with him, and um, the the project is still plodding along, and
really.
so we'll see
That's
how
one of
that
those
goes.
games I never got, which is
I
funny because
I
this
suggested he reach out to all the artists that have worked with Jim in the past to help with the art. So hopefully he will. If or the few people I know, I can try to like, hey, Tim Kask, hey,
right,
you need to talk to this guy. Levi Combs, please talk to this guy. A bunch of people.
sure.
Publishers, couple publishers. Please talk to this guy. Help him and Jim's family out, man. Get this done.
I had a
Holy
copy
cow.
of Metamorphosis at one point. I don't know whatever happened to it, and it's one of the few that I do need to get back into my collection. because I want to have all the original old.
You can get that big book that Goodman Games put out, which is what I did to replace it.
I'm not a real big fan of Goodman Games.
You have to get it used, I think, at this point.
Oh yeah, I can definitely, one of these days, I've got my feelers out for a copy of Metamorphosis Alpha, Chainmail, Petal Throne, some of the old ones that were literally before my time. But I'll get them. There's very few things on my bucket list that I haven't been able to, even if I got to go with a reprint, that's fine. Sometimes.
If you have Gamma World 1, do you have the
I
first
do.
Gamma World? Okay. So they made some changes between Metamorphosis Alpha because once they put Gamma World, they've stopped really making Metamorphosis Alpha.
Yeah.
And the
it's
changes
or ship,
the additional material makes sense. What?
It was just Gamma World, but on a big ship, right?
Right. Yeah, it was yeah, exactly. So the way to look at it is Metamorphosis Alpha would be 0 original D&D for Gamma World. You see what I'm saying? And then Gamma World would be like 1E. Or Metamorphosis Alpha is 1E Gamma World, and then 1E Gamma World is 2E Metamorphosis Alpha. Really. So you can see the changes, whether you like them or not, between the two things, and it's still very compatible back and forth. At that stage, there were some fixes in Gamma World that they just forgot to put in, but those fixes you could find in original D&D. So if you had original D&D and you couldn't find the rule, but you're like had played original D&D and we're playing Metamorphosis Alpha, you'd be like, oh, okay, well I know what rule I'm going to use because I use that rule in out of D&D and just sub it in, and then when they put out Gamma World, oh look, there's that rule.
Gotcha. Because I do have all the old what I have all but one of the white box original D&D books.
A bit different. And there are things different, like Gamma World, it's front loaded based on your constitution.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
D6 per constitution point equals your hit points.
Damage done by the weapons, depending on whether you're a mutant, a human, a mutant human, a human, an animal mutant,
or a plant,
or an android.
There were no.
It changes the damage the weapon does, and also it's the combat system is armor class versus weapon type. So it is different than Gamma World as well. So we played Metamorphosis Alpha. I took our group on a little adventure, and we had death and destruction, and yeah. I think they burnt down part of the ship.
Everybody knows one of my famous "Why PCs Gotta Die" show I did a while back. Actually, I did a couple of them on my show and elsewhere. That we need to make death great again, because I don't know what happened and when and where and how it happened, but you gotta lose a PC every once in a while. Otherwise, it just feels like Hunger. I knew that, but I just after that, any info after that. But yeah, I've been in too many games over the last couple of years where that was not gonna happen. I don't know. Even the old school DMs, they seem to fear losing players through character death. Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, I have, and I think there's a huge disconnect going on in the community over a bunch of things. Death is one of them. Yeah, I get it. You don't want the characters to die, but it happens. So poor choices are made. Sometimes just dumb.
Otherwise, it's not really a game, is it?
Yeah. And there's no risk. Your excitement level goes down. Then it's just either the DM telling a story and you're all along for the ride, the classic railroad guys, right? Or it's the players telling the story and the DM's along for the ride. It's still a classic railroad. It's just been flipped.
Yeah,
And it's
with
not an
a lot
interactive.
more padding for everybody, and I don't
Yeah,
like that.
it's not as interactive. And I'm not totally against death saves and things like that, but they have to add drama to the game, and there still has to be a decent risk of failure. For instance, um, Hankrin over on Runehammer, um, he has I think it's in his hardcore rules, I think, if I remember right, for 5e, he has a death save in there. But here's the deal. So you're down to the point where the character's dying, whatever that is, right? And you roll a timer dice, and that's a 1d4. That means the buddies, his friends, have whatever came up that many rounds to get
Mhm,
over to their friend and try to save him. And that's active. That's the word. Try to save him.
mhm, mhm.
Okay. If they, and of course, there's some things you can't save from. You know, if
Right.
they can't stabilize that unconscious dying player, they die.
Mhm. Which is funny
Um,
because I was thinking, um,
it's not a
mind you,
bad rule. It's drama.
this is usually fantasy that we're talking about because I was thinking, you know what? I have heard of a lot of miraculous modern day real world uh,
You should
miracles.
be dead. Yeah, but you didn't.
People, they get the ambulance gets there in time, and they're not clerics, they're not casting cure light wounds, but sure enough, these people make it. Then, of course, there's other times where it's the exact opposite, people dying
Right.
from really dumb little things. But I guess they only had 2 hit points, and that's what I'm going to chalk it up to. But and in all of our games except for Top Secret, like there's nothing. I mean, that game is brutal. They talk about Traveler. Well, you can die during
Yeah,
character.
I remember Top Secret. I had Top Secret and I had 007, the
Yeah,
game.
and
Yeah.
there was nothing. There were no band aids, no cure light wounds. There was nothing. You just took a bullet, and you know
Boom.
that could be it. Especially the
Yeah,
original.
well,
The second edition
original.
was a little bit more generous, but not really. But all in all, modern games are sometimes either full of death or they've got all the other things like magic and psionics and superpowers that let you get away with that stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was. So, so it just depends on the setting a little bit, obviously. But you have to look at your death saves. Do you need them? Is there another way to handle that? For instance, like since we die in our D&D game at 0, the game I'm in, the DM who runs that. Yeah, there's no yeah, you get to 0, man, you're dead. So that means players characters have to be saved before they get to 0.
Right.
The party has to be
Even
cognitive. They got to move that person back, and somebody take care of that person, and somebody take their place up in the combat rank,
and it's
and
funny
rotate
because
up.
when I hear these death saves, it's like, well, okay, there's this mechanical hit points. You've got some.
Hmm.
When you got none, you're dead. Even if you play the -10 or negative con rule, when you got none of those left, you're dead. How do you
Right.
save versus that? Where are the replacement hit points coming from? I mean, for the most part, a cure light wounds could bring you back up to 0 or 1. At 0, you're just going to start sliding back into the negatives again. But if you get to that just 1, you got 1 hit point, you're not dead. You're
Right.
not
So
dying.
like, and so like,
So what's a death save? How many hit points you got?
yeah.
You got some or you got none? The answer's pretty obvious after that. So what, a
So
death save just is a way to see if on a 20-sided die you get free hit points? Can I do a heal save and just see if I, magically just regenerate in the middle of combat then? Why at the moment of almost death do you get a chance to replenish your hit
Well,
points.
and the way I would
reasons.
do rule a death save, okay, because obviously something very traumatic's happened, whatever that is, to your system, right? What
Mm,
is yeah, you're not dead, you're at zero, but still you're now unconscious, because somebody stabilized you temporarily. Not the word temporarily.
mhm.
you're not you're not healed. That if I would set a time that you've got to get hit points back into you somehow, right? With further medical intervention, however that is, or you're still going to die.
Right, because
You know,
most most rules that go into like negatives state that you're going to lose X number per round or minute
hmm right?
because you're
That's
bleeding out.
that's
You
what they're
know,
doing.
but even if you stop the bleeding, okay, let's say they could like freeze time and you're stuck at -4 hit points. Well, you still need 5 hit points from somewhere to get back over that line.
Right, right. Somebody's got to
And
give them to you some way somehow, man.
so a death save, what is? I mean, that just literally is a gimme. It's like well, you've got hit points
Yeah, I
from
think what I
nowhere.
started doing now, I'm not the one DMing the D&D game. Somebody else is DMing that. So everybody plays Star Trek games as Klingons. Yes, actually, I did.
Your mic is a
I
little
played a
little
Klingon,
poppy.
but what I started doing was, like I said, I've moved to the position a while back that I want everybody in my games front loaded some way somehow on their
I
numbers
wonder
for
where you got that idea.
yeah, it's only in Gamma World, Memphis, Alphas, Ardoon, a few other places, yeah.
Hey,
And
real quick, your mic is popping. Can you check to see if it's all the way plugged in or?
it's my iPad. I have
Uh,
no, and I had to, and this used to fix it, but now it's with StreamYard, it's doing something weird. So I
Let me
can't.
see if I can, because I did raise your volume. Let me see if
I can come closer if that helps.
that might help.
So what I started doing was after you lose so many hit points, you have to do a save or something happened that's negative. And so that means
Okay,
that you can lose
that's it.
you can lose consciousness and still have hit points. And the
Oh,
way
sure. You get
the
knocked on the
way
back of the head with a
I
staff.
decided to start doing things in my house rules. So that's just the way I decided to start doing it because it made sense to me. I mean, I get Gary's.
What's up,
I
TCG?
totally get AD&D. I understand the abstract nature of it, and how that's come forward. I just disagree with it at this point. As to the Klingon stuff and what we're and big monsters in space, um, death saves are a chance to bleed out and die right then. If you lie on the floor helplessly and hope someone comes to heal you before the bad guy ends you. Pretty much. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. But then you see people do the weird stuff, and you're like, no, that's not what it's
Yeah,
supposed to
because
be.
see, back even in I think it was AD&D. I could be wrong. Where if you took a single hit that was more than 50% of your total max hit points, you could die right there, right
Yeah,
then and there
shock.
on the
Yeah, yeah.
just because you've got 10 hit points, you got hit with five hit points, roll this thing, and oh, I'm sorry, you're just dead. What
So
the
yeah, there's a
hell?
lot of rules in D&D that people can mine over the years, where people have handled all this stuff differently. I do believe some things just kill you outright. It doesn't matter how many hit points you have.
Right,
Um,
right. The old poison save. Well, I've got 100 hit points. Yeah, well, you rolled a 1. You died of poison.
yeah,
What?
1,000 hit
Yeah.
points doesn't matter. You still died.
Yep, yep. So let's get back to the big old space critters because that's kind of what we're here for.
Yeah, back
Um,
on subject.
what do you think? Do you think there's some possibility that things like tardigrades just leave the atmosphere and just get bigger because there's no gravity and they start feeding on particles out in space or they're places where these big old critters maybe they evolve on a vacuum world, a world with no atmosphere, and they just evolve to say, well, I'm leaving home, and just start flapping through the void and just
Why not? I mean,
uh,
we study biology here, and of course that's Earth biology, so that's what we know. But who's to say what's out in space in real life any more than Fantasyland? I mean, Fantasyland, which is what we're talking about with spaceships.
nice,
You can do
Doodle.
whatever you want. Yeah.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah,
Remember,
Klingons would love to fight giant monsters in space, right? I challenge
they would
people
be.
to watch Star Trek, and then as you're watching Star Trek, ask yourself, what would a Klingon ship do? Now, some of the
Have
episodes
a
are going to
lot
be
more
really
fun.
short. I'm going to tell you that right now, but
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
it's way fun to watch like a whole episode and they go, would a Klingon captain do this? Would a Klingon?
Not a chance in hell. Do you remember the fungi from Yaga?
The what?
The fungi from Yaga?
Yeah. The when they introduced the fungi dudes.
Hmm. So I was thinking about that. You know, why? Why? Why would it have to be like a flesh and blood? It could easily be
Yeah.
something that's based on
Have
photosynthesis,
you seen
uh, or a mold, a spore, a fungus.
Have you seen Mutiny in Space? It's on YouTube. It's an old black and white sci-fi movie.
Sounds
Mutiny in
familiar.
Space.
I was going through some old sci-fi movies
Fungus from the
a
Moon.
while ago, looking for ideas.
It's a great one. Fungus from a Moon. I mean, that Mutiny in Space is a whole adventure. You could write a whole sci-fi adventure off of that.
Yeah, I think we really do all need to go back to the black and white era, and even if we don't tell anybody, go and mine it for ideas, because there's so much great stuff. As corny and campy and ridiculous as some of it
You
is,
just update it.
there's some diamonds in the rough out there.
I have learned something. Any space station that has the word gamma in it, get off of. It's like spaceship after, I mean, not spaceship, but space station after space station. Something bad is going down on that space station. Maybe it's
Hold on, I think I've got
alien
the original right here.
zombies, fungus, things, spores, mad scientists, alien attacks gonna happen, but every time. Green
You mean
one-eyed
this one?
monsters.
You mean this
Adventure
one?
Research Station Gamma. I'm telling you, it's a whole thing.
Traveler folks.
It's a whole thing in the
I cut my
movies,
teeth on this at the ripe old age of
Japanese
14.
movies.
Oh my God.
Yeah, if Gamma is in the name, it doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be made in the United States either. It can be made in Italy. It can be made in Japan. If Gamma
Yes,
is
the fun
on the
guys
side
from
of that
Yaga.
space station, you are in trouble.
Yeah, because it's amazing, because when I was thinking about it, when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft and all of his stuff, outer space, none of it made any sense. But the Cthulhu and Hastur and oh, we lost Grandma for a second. There she is. All those big things, even the littler ones, the fungi, the Bakey or Bikey, I forget how you pronounce those guys. Does anybody actually really know? I mean, there's probably nobody alive who actually spoke to Lovecraft and heard him utter them properly. But all those great, nasty, eldritch horrors were completely oblivious to all the normal, you know, necessities of life. But yet, Lovecraft, he came up with this stuff. Maybe he was just pulling stuff out of his ass. But then it turns out, decades, almost a century later, we're finding out that some of that stuff could have been an actual, or could be actual realities out there in the depths of space. And we know so little about even the life on this planet. Who's to say that there aren't a whole bunch of things out there that uh, that could be living and thriving out there beyond what we know of with the rules and laws of life and all that sort of stuff. GURPS Atomic Horror Sourcebook is great for 50s, 60s sci-fi. I'm sure Grandma will be back. If not, it's going to be a weird show. You guys just listen to me babble on 5 about nothing. Uh, yeah, Grandma. But yeah, to me, I think we're those of us who are running sci-fi games really should think about throwing something like that every once in a while. Throw in a big, bad, ugly space critter that makes no sense, and then maybe that's the adventure for the night or the week or the next couple of sessions to figure out the mystery of how and why this big critter even exists, like Tinman. That was a great idea back in the day, and I'm certain that it's been you know borrowed elsewhere. I remember in what was it? No Man's Sky, the great video game. I don't know if anybody out there actually played it, but in No Man's Sky there was the option or the opportunity to find a starship that was a living creature, and same in Tin Man. And I'm assuming from what was it? Farscape. I never watched Farscape. You guys, maybe you did. I remember like the character pilot and the ship were connected, and I got the impression that the ship was alive, and that makes for a great idea. I've used the giant, mega turtles as islands with cities on them. Well, why not some sort of giant space critter, an asteroid like thing that other races may have discovered and decided to build uh, uh, a station or a colony on it, and went about their business thinking they were in control, or maybe it was a symbiotic relationship where like what was it, the Dan or something like that, the giant fish or the giant turtle that people lived on in the ocean. You know the story, Grandma? I guess not. Maybe she does. She's just being coy. What's up, Joseph? Uh, Mercurius. There's a Lovecraftian sci-fi game called Elder Skies. Earth has colonies in outer space using some Elder Race technology. That sounds fun. That sounds a lot of fun. There's also Scythonian Stars, which I've been trying to get for about 4 years now. And the only place I can find that is Drive Through. And I mean, Drive Through is really, really affordable. But yet, this particular book, half the size of any other book you can pick, is like $60 for a reprint. And I'm like, no way, guys. Just no way. So what do you think, Grandma? Big old living asteroids with people on it, and they don't know that the asteroid's alive.
That they don't know the asteroid's alive?
Yeah. Why not, right?
Yeah, why not?
Like
they've
the
had.
equivalent of a big crustacean shell that the shell appears to be inorganic or not alive, but deep inside is the thing, and it's kind of like Far Point
Yeah, why
Station
not?
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And then it could, you know, they land their ship on there, and the next thing they know, that the thing's trying to like eat on them and stuff from
Submarine.
the ship.
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot of Stargate Atlantis, but that's awesome. I think why the heck not? If we look at all the animals we've domesticated, over the millennia. If we found critters out there that didn't object too much and couldn't fight back much, if they were living space critters, we'd put them to work, within minutes of meeting them. It's like, oh, but just a dumb animal. All right, put a saddle and a bridle on it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
How
how
do we
cool would that be?
domesticate this? And it would
Right?
just like be the
And they
alien
have a live
series,
feed of the
right?
Devil's Comet. Oh, I wonder how much fun that's going to be.
Live ships, yeah. No, living ships are cool. Yeah, but yeah, we would totally. And dangerous beasties. Oh yeah, it would just be like the aliens movie. Somebody would want that for military purposes and think they could control it in a lab. That could be
Mm-hmm.
a tiny little virus to face hugger. It doesn't matter. Some moron. There's always one.
Exactly. And even better, I don't know how familiar you are with Games Workshop, Space
Games
Marines, and
Workshop.
all that sort of. What?
Yeah.
Well, the Tyranid, they're an entire race of hostiles out there that create brand new species to fit their needs, and one of the needs was to get from planet to planet. So they made giant spaceships, and then they would get inside the spaceships that were alive, and make these hive fleets. And then it occurred to me, another classic from back in the day was Starship Troopers.
Yep.
They
With
had
all the
the
different
bugs.
insects.
The bugs had creatures, bugs, whatever you want to call them, that could either live in space or were there troop transports.
Absolutely. And the
I will have
thing
to check
is,
that out, Derek.
different species are going to have different moralities.
Mm-hmm.
There you can't assume, if there is life out in space and it is intelligent, even in a fantasy world, that it's going to think even remotely like us. I mean,
Right.
usually we make them like
That's
us.
one of the I think one of the really hey, what's up, George? Yeah. I didn't know what the name of it was, George. The I never watched but like a couple of clips of Farscape. I'm gonna get around to it on Amazon one of these days. But as far as I remember, the ship was alive, similar to Tin Man, which was pretty interesting. Being able to use this creature as your ship, and it would protect you and take you from place to place. I think that's a really neat idea of getting the players a ship, but not giving them trillions of credits worth of hardware. Well, you found this critter on this vac world, and it's injured, and you help it out, and next thing you know, it's letting you go inside and see the control mechanisms, and it's like, yeah, let's go adventure. That
Yeah,
would be, I
Frontier.
mean, it seems a little immature or childish in a way, but at the same time, if you're going like Gonzo
Yeah.
sci-fi, then you know what? You can't get any more Gonzo than
Yeah,
that in
Farscape has a
sci-fi.
whole Gonzo side of it. That's it's actually kind of fun. Um, but it's not the same kind of Gonzo as you get, say, in Star Wars with the Force. It's a different
But
Gonzo.
even then, they had the Minox, those giant things
Right.
that lived in the asteroids,
Right.
and that was I don't even consider that
And the
Gonzo. I just think
asteroid moray
that was
eels.
just kind of right at the end. That was actually very believable. I could totally see how that would be a thing. Just a creature that doesn't even, kind of like, I don't want to say like a whale, but kind of like that. Where they don't really seem to do much, but if you mess with them, then they're going to mess with you
Yeah,
back.
they're sitting
Like the
there
movie Orca.
in their
You might
in their
remember that movie?
asteroid, waiting for stuff to come by, like a moray eel does, out in the ocean, you know. Um, and they can probably move around too from asteroid to asteroid, just like a
Or
moray
or
eel.
using some sort of different propulsion, something we're completely unaware of. I guarantee there are sciences and laws of physics that we haven't even scratched the surface of,
Oh,
because we're stuck on this rock. And once you get out there, you learn,
yeah, yeah. They'll.
so much more. That's why I really, really like sci-fi games where travel is not like a pain in the ass. You know
Yes.
what I mean? You know,
Well,
um,
then you got to do
I
the
get it.
math. Do we have time
I totally
dilation
get all that.
happening?
I totally get all that, but I'm not there for math. If I gave even the tiniest of rats asses about math, I would not be here. And it was actually my inability to grasp more complex math at the time in high school. Eventually, I learned a lot more out of high school, but it was just the environment and things. When I do right, Orca with Richard Harris, cool film. It was telling the Frankenstein story in an odd way. You think that's what it was they were going for? I kind of got the idea of it was sort of like a Moby Dick um, sort of story, but I was a real young kid when I saw that. But in sci-fi, I want the travel from planet to planet to be just a sort of a foregone conclusion. I don't need to know how or why, and maybe I could put some minor restrictions, but it just stifles the story and the whole desire of wanting to play a sci-fi game is to boldly explore new worlds and new civilizations, not get stuck in the same one
Right.
for the length of the campaign or something. Now I get it if the social contract is that you're going to get into the underhive of the city, the nitty gritty, the grim dark aspect of this one city, and your characters are not going to be the far flung heroes going from planet to planet like
The
Buck
colony
Rogers and
ship
Flash.
thing on the planet, the new colony or whatever. Yeah,
You-
yeah, that's all got a place in the game, in the kind of sci-fi genre.
But it does limit you. You definitely can't go gonzo with that sort of style. But when the those doorways and pathways are unblocked and you can go to new worlds, you can explore so much more of your GM's universe and meet those big giant space creatures.
Right.
At least
And that
once.
brings me to Frontier Space. It's put out by DWD.
The Star Frontiers with the serial numbers
Right.
filed off.
They have the insect race that they have in there for a PC race, which is a bipedal insect race.
Uh-huh.
They're weird as heck. I mean, they really sat down and came up with some weird ideas for them, which is cool. And
which should be part
right.
of
And
sci-fi.
they have living spaceships. That is, their technology is completely different. And when their spaceships reach the point where they're going to die, there is a spaceship graveyard within their
That's
space.
awesome. Oh
Isn't
man,
it
I
awesome?
love that idea. I
And they
love that
get
idea.
ticked off if something happens to one of their living spaceships.
Right, but then when they go to
Pretty
die, there's this big old fleet of just floating husks, and talk about a really creepy Tomb Raider kind of game, because there's
and you're not
bound to be
supposed to be
stuff.
there. Yeah. And obviously you're not
Oh,
supposed to be in that area.
not.
Of course,
Like you're not supposed to. It's like you're not supposed to go under the pyramids, but that didn't stop Harry Houdini now, did it?
Yeah.
Right?
See if you can't bring one of those suckers back to life and steal it.
Oh no. Think about it like this. Think about it like this, right?
You can find.
Your friend the ship is dying, right? So you go out to the graveyard and say your goodbyes, but you don't take everything. You don't take your Kleenex boxes or all the pictures off the walls. But then 1,000 years later, these humans sneak into the graveyard and they start finding stuff that to them would be like, oh my God, this is miraculous. They've got this never ending box of tissues. How did they do that? The other aliens just left it behind, but look, I'll never run out of tissues, or some weird little mundane thing that would be nothing to the people that left it behind.
Don't get caught.
Obviously, but that's the fun of it. That's the whole idea behind tomb raiding and dungeon exploring and all that sort of thing, is to go where you're not supposed to go, see what you can get away with. I know it's deplorable in a way, stealing
graveyard, like
ancient artifacts, things like that. But I mean, that allows for your character to have that growth arc. He started out as a dirty, rotten scoundrel grave robber, and somewhere along the way learned the error of his ways and decided, what? Oh, now I'm going to do the AA thing and put everything back where I got it. You
And
know what
see,
I
a
mean? Can you
game like
imagine that?
Frontier Space or Star Frontiers, any of the space ones, I mean, if you always need to make it fit kind of like your vision as the game master anyway, and what and also what the party you think the people playing are going to be interested in. I mean, if they hate Star Trek, do not take them on a Star Trek like game. They're
Right.
going to hate
I
it. You know,
that's one
if
of the things I do like about the evolution of our hobby is that not like the X cards or anything like that or consent forms, but you know, filling out a form to like let your ref know what you'd really like out of a game, and then having your ref take all 5, 7, 8, 10, 12 of those, forms from the players, and then going, okay, what can I make out of this mess? Going, oh, okay, they want giant robots, and this guy wants living spaceships. Oh, and this lady would like, living robots. Stuff like that, and then putting it all
we can,
together.
you can work with that, man. You got
Oh, I
so
know,
much
right?
potential there.
I've already used all three of those
Yeah,
before,
but
but yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Even in one group of people, there's so much potential to bring all that together in some shape and form.
and still make it your own,
Yeah.
without just feel like you're catering to and being the facilitator for the night's enjoyment, to these chuckleheads that are at your table, but turning it into something, yeah, Tomb of Horrors, but in space. I
Yes. Yes,
absolutely,
absolutely.
yeah,
You have, okay, like in Farscape, there's a point there because the ship when it jumps, it's in between dimensions, I guess would be the
okay.
best way to explain it, and it gets stuck. And so they have to get the ship unstuck, but
Mhm.
because it's stuck between three dimensions at once and it's not in its own reality, they fall through different dimensions on these multiple um a
Layers.
ship. Yeah, and then of course there's critters living in these different dimensions trying to get into the ship and doing stuff they got to deal with. So like they'll disappear. Like you'll be talking to somebody and they'll walk over there and then they're gone because they've gone up or down a level or what
Hmm,
wherever you
hmm.
are relative.
Like a
And
tesseract kind of.
that is actually a really good um ship plot idea for ships that you know go go into some kind of hyperspace or something, that they get stuck between these hyperspace levels.
I was watching this video
Or
about 6 months ago, I want to say, about what it would be like on all the different, dimensions, first, second, third, fourth, on up to 10, which I
and
think
they're
is
like slight shift variations too. So they figure out
well,
that when the ship
sometimes
looks
really
like a different color.
drastic ones as well.
Yeah.
But it made me think of that movie. I think it was From Beyond, the H.P. Lovecraft movie. I think that's what it was called, where the guy made the machine. And if you were near the machine, you could see these creatures in the other dimensions. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean? And if they noticed you just noticing them, then they would try to eat you, kind of thing.
Yeah, they did something
What?
similar, believe it or not, in Stargate, where uh I forget what caused it, but um people thought other people were losing it, but they were just enough in this reality that everybody could see you, right? And you could interact with them, but they were just enough in a slightly different reality
Like the
or
fourth or fifth
dimension,
dimension?
right, where they could see these beasties that nobody else could see, but the beasties were starting to come into this reality, and then they
Because
were dangerous,
right,
extremely
and
dangerous.
that another living big giant thing, and also a ship, was in Babylon 5. The Vorlons vessels were
Oh
alive,
yeah.
and those were scary.
Oh
Those
yeah, the
I don't know
Vorlons.
why, but they were scary. Whereas Tin Man and other things were not scary. Buckaroo Banzai, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, Buckaroo
So
Banzai.
if these creatures can traverse space by using other dimensions or warp or hyperspace or something like that, wouldn't it make sense that maybe that's where they actually came from, and that they're just tooling around in our universe for a while, sightseeing, but then they're gonna, at some point, 100 years from now, maybe they'll want to go and go back to their home dimension, and next thing you know, the ship's like, well, I'm going back home, and I guess you're coming with. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
talk
I
about
hear
a
the
nightmare
call for the
situation.
Great Migration.
Now you're in the fifth dimension, and there's all these other things lurking around, or something like that. Not to mention, maybe some of these creatures, because they, you know, can warp on their own. Maybe they're from the warp, but maybe the things that eat them, their natural, predators, might come out of the warp
Correct.
or hyperspace looking for just a meal, and they don't care what's inside it. They don't
Right.
care if there's humans inside that ship fishy thing they want to eat. And now your ship is just like running, acting crazy because it knows there's this thing chasing it. You can't see it yet. It
Yeah,
hasn't
you
fully
think you're in
faced
a
it.
big ship and it's a minnow compared to the other thing.
I know, right? How fun would that be? Your ship, your loyal
Is
ship
that
for years and years suddenly is acting crazy.
yeah?
And
Is
little do
that
you
planet
know,
chasing us?
or even if you really want to go the humorous side, maybe it's mating season.
Yep.
Do you want to be in your ship when that time of life
Well, have you
rolls
ever
around
seen
for your ship to get it on with another ship? No, no, that's
but
just as scary. Maybe I'm sure you could really make it really
yeah,
funny.
the
It's like, okay,
Discworld
ship,
series?
we're gonna go get a room while you and this other ship get a room. Living ship.
Yeah,
Hold on, guys, it's mating season. I know, right? How
yeah.
funny would that be?
This
But at the
yeah,
same time, it could be terrifying and gross.
yeah.
I don't know. That's what Gonzo's all about, folks. Um, we really should not be afraid to bust out of those
Well, in
confines.
Farscape, let's see, the spaceship does get pregnant. It has a baby. They discover
I don't
she's
know what you
pregnant.
mean by this, Cal, but you know what?
You know,
I was wondering and hoping you were going to come in because I
hey
was talking
Cal.
to OGGM, and I've been talking to Grandma, and I think as Californian folks, we need to start a game with the good old fashioned California style. It doesn't have to be live streamed or anything like that. Wouldn't want to like weird people out, but I'm in the mood for something really, really out there. So maybe we can get together and talk about it, an online game or something. It doesn't have to be sci-fi, but I kind of would like it to be. But I'm not volunteering to run the game. Hoping OGGM will actually, because he's not here. Um,
Got voted.
but
So
OGGM, he's a
didn't
great
make the
guy.
live stream. We're
He,
paying
he,
attention.
he, he was there Thursday and he had a lot of fun. And he's a really fun guy. If you haven't subscribed to him, go check out his channel. I know there's a whole lot of stuff he and I probably don't agree on, but when it comes to gaming, and let's face it, that's all that really matters in life, right? Um,
Well,
uh,
there's no way we can all agree on everything anyway. I mean, good lord.
I
How
know
boring would it be too?
I'd come to the conclusion that heaven's got to be different for everybody. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. Like here's my heaven, there's your heaven. You can come visit mine. Can I come visit yours? No. Okay. I'm probably better off not being able to do that. But there's the door. You want to come visit. Um, Same with RPGs. I don't know, Cal. You volunteering? You want to run some Arduin or some really gonzo sci-fi? Or some sci-fi gonzo Arduin. I don't know. But yeah, maybe it's because spring is in the air. It was funny. Yesterday, it hailed like crazy yesterday. I mean, it was damn near snow in April in California where I live. And then
Well, it's
today
cold outside.
it was almost freaking 80 degrees. I'm like, thank God it's about time. I was way up to here with the cold weather, 30, 40 degrees. And yes, Cal, resistance is futile. The Borg will unify all. No, no, they won't, because we humans will fight back to the bitter end, and they will get nothing, or they'll
We
get
will
a whole
rebel.
bunch of this, and then realize, oh my God, what have we done? We should have scanned their brains before we added them to the collective. Oh my God, why won't they shut up about these Kardashian people? What? Who cares? But just saying, the
Yeah.
uh,
One guy always sings the Love Boat song. Shut up.
Oh no, don't do that to us.
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay.
I
I guess it's about time
board
that
board problems. Yeah. Um. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are, Cal. We are.
Some kind of little game would be awesome.
Yeah,
Um.
even if it's not like, but once a month, just to cut loose from all the, the cut and paste standard stereotypical medieval European fantasy role playing BS. I mean, I've done it. If I've done it once, I've literally done it like 1,000 times. If I never encounter another giant rat in a game ever, I will only my life will only be a little bit better, not worse, because I didn't fight another dozen giant rats, kobolds, orcs, goblins, any of that nonsense. It's just, most of us old timers have done that, and maybe not all of you have done it as much as you got to understand, with us YouTubers, that's kind of why we're here, because we're like really, I think, really bored with everything else that we've done. Wouldn't you say?
No,
You
I
know,
don't know. I just started doing it. I mean, I know why I started doing YouTube, but I put a couple videos up because I had the account because I was watching other people's stuff, or, whatever I was interested in at the time. And then one day, the whole big lockdown happened. Remember the big lockdown? And the sport that I do, we were forced
in
to
a
all
way,
compete
in a
live
way,
on YouTube. We were
in a way,
forced to.
the lockdown was kind of, for at least my son and I, it had this silver lining that was absolutely life changing. You know,
And yeah, no. It. I'm not going to say. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, it's terrible." Well, yeah, it had some bad consequences, obviously, but it also
it
had some
was
good.
horrible, no lie.
But
But
so we had to the people who wanted to compete or needed to compete had to do, because I do taekwondo. They had to do forms. Now these are amateur sports people. This is like, these are not, you're not the organization I'm in. The majority of people are not going to go to the Olympics or anything like that. Okay, let's be honest. It's just a number thing, and a lot of people start when they're older, especially in America, and we're not in shape anymore and all this stuff. So I'm watching people doing their best to perform what is martial arts ballet, basically. I mean, it's their actual moves, but they have to be precisely performed and to a precise pattern. And because that's really all we had to do, right? I mean, we couldn't go fight each other because
mhm,
the nation shut down. We couldn't go break boards. We couldn't do speed. There was nothing else we could do.
mhm.
So I'm watching people do that, and we had a chat going because it was on YouTube, live. And at first, everything was cool because you're like, "Hey, man, are you okay?" It was a chance for all these people who normally see each other at competition to talk, to communicate. So we're communicating happily away. How's your kids? How's people from different states. And then the trolls came in, and the trolls all had fake names.
Mhm.
Almost all of them named themselves after famous fighters of some sort, usually an MMA fighter.
Mhm.
And they just started trolling hard all the people competing. And they all, and nothing against the people I know who are real, who don't have an image of any kind. Uh, but they were all just a letter and a fake name. Every last one of them. Yeah, and famous people, fake names, and they had these fake accounts. Nothing on their accounts, nothing. And I just, after that, I just said, you know what? I'm going to go in, put something in my little thingy, and start playing around with the YouTube account and start posting videos. I don't know on what, but I'm just going to start posting videos that says I'm a real person. I'm not an internet troll. I'm not afraid of the internet where I need to hide my face and never make a video and never put anything out there, and just, not that I ever wrote anything mean on anybody's stuff anyway, but I just, I couldn't stand it. These people who aren't doing anything, just going on and trying to tear down people who are doing their best in a very worldwide public situation that normally they would not be. Normally they would be locally at some gym somewhere competing with people that more or less they've gotten to know, you know. So it was just, that's why I started doing it. To be honest, that's why, and that's why a lot of my, not all my original content's up, but that's why y'all got, some of you, I didn't start out with RPG Grandma as my name, you know, on
Nope.
the YouTube
Nope.
channel. And that's why also you'll get like random other stuff from me. And that's not, you know, once in a while, you know, I haven't done a chicken one in a while. There'll be other stuff because I feel like doing other stuff and I don't really care what the AI thinks on the logarithm. I'm a real
Mhm.
person.
Yeah,
And
I think
Shadow,
it's
you're a real
really
person, you know?
exactly. You know, I do the prepper videos, and then you know I've done some of the paranormal stuff. I think it's really uh, refreshing to see that kind of content from our friends. You know, when they're not afraid to just
And I get it.
reveal a
Some of
little
the
bit
people
more of
we know
themselves.
have more by what I would call professional YouTube channels, and they're
Right.
connected to their business. And so I understand why they do their stuff the way they do. But
Sure.
even they are real people. And if you listen to them long enough, you'll know that, you know? And
Mhm.
and like I said, I don't have to agree with everybody. I there's plenty of times people post stuff, I'm like, yeah, not my jam, but I don't go in there and type a
Right.
bunch of angry comments, you know? It's just not my, that video isn't my jam. Or I'm like, you know, are you okay, man? If there's a way to, for me to privately contact what happened, because
Mhm.
it's not their normal content and it's just off. But you know, we're human beings. We're not we're not
Giant space
trained circus
creatures.
animals.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to segue back into the conversation.
But yeah, so I mean that's why I started doing it. And you know, we had time on our hands. So yeah, I'll walk around, take pictures of flowers in my yard, you know, talk about a plant, you know. Got nothing
My,
better to do.
my friend Fritz, the GM's Alco, his biggest video is him cutting the lawn.
Yeah,
He's got
you
like
know,
a million views
some people like
about
that,
him.
man. Cutting lawns. There's like a whole
I love the
thing on
guy, and
YouTube.
he's a great friend and does great stuff in the hobby. But the world's weird, you know. They'll watch you mow your lawn, you know, in the
Well,
millions. You know, if you're
year,
telling them
ye-
how to do it right or something, you know.
years ago on YouTube, if you fell asleep in front of your computer, which like everybody at my job did at some point, at home, they'd go home, they'd sit down, they'd do some stuff on the computer, they'd bring YouTube up for whatever subject they were looking up, right? Whatever thing. Could have been music, could have been a movie, it could have been a role playing game thing. It didn't matter.
Cooking.
Did not matter. And if they fell asleep, I swear to God, every single however the logarithm was working back then, every single person at work woke up to the dancing guy in his underwear. There was a guy who was dancing in his whitey tighties, and you always knew who fell asleep and experienced that for the first time because they'd be at work and they'd be talking to somebody. Huh? I fell asleep at the computer, and so I woke up. I don't know what I slept through. I started out with this, but I woke up to a guy dancing. I said, "Oh, you seen him?" You know, like everybody at some point. And that logarithm is
The
so weird. It
Sandman's
does it to
ultimate
me
form.
too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sandman's ultimate form. Yes, the YouTube dancing dude. I mean, now the logarithm takes you other places, but yeah, so that's why, you know, we had time on our hands. So we all started doing stuff. I got a lot of crafting done.
Yeah,
Now I'm
same
behind.
here. I mean,
I'm
that's
behind
kind of
now.
how our
Never
channel
get anything done.
started. You know, me and the boy, you know, making weird stuff that I have no home for now. I kid
I
you not, I've got like
love crafting.
90 craft projects we've made over the years, and some of them are massive, and I've got nowhere to put them. So I decided when I hold the convention in 25 over in Texas, I'm just going to load up all the crafts that we've made. I'm going to put them on a table at the convention, and hopefully they will just disappear during the
So if you do
convention.
the tactical ship battle stuff, if you have
Mhm.
like the little chits or whatever, one of the nice things about giant monsters is you can get one of these things. Hold on,
Oh, no kidding, huh?
I'm getting up. Oh, Starfish of Doom. Okay, Starfish of Doom here.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
yeah,
seen it
this
already.
sucker. I painted it. It's actually an actual shell. Um, it it this you can use it for your little regular minis. It can be an alien monster on a planet, but it could also be something out in space. And you set
Mhm.
up the whole tactical board, and they think they're going to be dealing with a space fleet of and then this thing flies in.
Sure, absolutely. Why not?
Throw
Um,
that down on the mat.
it's funny
Let
you
everyone
mention
go,
that
oh,
because there. You ever go to the Dollar Tree?
oh yeah, yeah. I've
They've
gone to
got
Dollar
these action figures called Final Faction, and they're like back when they were a buck and stuff, and they had all kinds of humans and aliens, and the aliens were great because I could turn them into um, monsters for my fantasy and sci-fi RPGs. But all the guns that the aliens had looked like freaking spaceships.
Yeah,
Kind of a biological looking spaceship, but still a spaceship if you turn it around a certain way or cut off this one little thing. Now it looks like a spaceship. Um, I love the
then
idea of something like the Tyranid, where it's just an entire race of biologicals from the ground up, from the ground pounders all the way to their
yeah, I
fleets
think we
being
did for
living things.
Star Frontiers. I think we were talking about the possibility that the Sathar ships were alive at some point, and I don't know how far we got with that over in the fan mag. But we were looking at it that the worms have a different technology, different way of thinking. They didn't,
You mean like the
even though they're,
Sathar?
yeah, the Sathar, yeah, yeah. And they had this whole worm motif, and we were
Mm-hmm.
just really just spinning off on that, like everybody who was working on that. And I've kind of always liked it that the Sathar could possibly have their ships. One of the reasons maybe that they're a little bit weaker than the relatively primitive frontier ships is uh, is it's
Because they were
possible that maybe
biological.
they're alive. Yeah, maybe they're actually
You know,
partially alive,
the more I
and
think
that's why they
about it,
blow themselves up when they think an aliens boarding them. They
because they
take
don't.
themselves out and the crew, not the other way around. We discussed that was that what was going on in the game, because it would make a very different take on the game that the ships were actually at least semi-intelligent, if not actually intelligent themselves.
The more I've been thinking about it, because I was thinking about the old creepy heavy metal and eerie magazines, and every time they did sci-fi, the alien ships always look biological. Is that just my memory, or do you
I think a
recall?
lot of their stuff is, but yeah, because they were always doing cutting edge stuff, so you got to make it look alien somehow.
Right,
and,
and
and
now the more I think
her
about it,
ships have a
the
look.
more I get this impression that a lot of artists back in the 60s and 70s, maybe even before or after, probably did go the biological route as a way to express the alienness, because unless you're a very skilled architectural type of artist, how else would the run of the mill, no offense to the run of the mill artists, but project or impart the idea of alienness other than giving it those rounded biological intestine looking external features of the ships and
Right.
the aliens, other than making them look more and more biological, more a living thing than an actual machine. Because if you're going to go the machine route, you have to have a really skilled hand at that sort of drawing. And I was thinking about several issues of, I'm pretty sure it was Eerie magazine, not Creepy, that when they would go into sci-fi, it would be some sort of living thing out in space. I remember one classic cover where there was a spaceship, and the heroes of the story are coming across the spaceship, and you could see that the spaceship is like from the inside out has started sprouting like mold and fungus and some sort of biological contamination going over the outside of the ship but starting inside and moving its way out, which again, shows to me the idea of I'm not alone in thinking that there would be a ton of stuff that could literally live and thrive in the vacuum of space. Otherwise, space would be like, the death zone. And you would have to go from planet through death zone to planet, and good luck, because
Right. And
if it's
and
if
our
it's so
understanding of what can work in space has changed so much too over a period of time. Like, yes, it needs to be aerodynamic if it's entering
an atmosphere,
constantly entering and re-entering an atmosphere. Yeah. But if it doesn't do that, then once it's up in space, man, the shape it can
you can
take
fly
is
a
just
brick if you got enough power.
wild, you know?
Hmm.
And so that revelation changed ship designs massively.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, a lot of the older ship designs, they were trying to imagine stuff before we'd even gotten rockets really up into orbit, and
The
then even
Flash
after we
Gordon
got them
and
up
Buck
into orbit.
Rogers and the
Yeah.
black and white movie serials, um, not only did they have crazy designs, but they also had crazy ideas of alien life forms. I remember,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was Buck Rogers that had the rock men that could meld into the walls,
Yep. I think, yeah,
and
yeah. I think there was some, yeah.
and
Or was
the
that
things like
Flash
that,
Gordon?
the precursor to more or less silicon life forms. And
Yeah.
if you were dealing with a silicon life form, they wouldn't need air anywhere near as much as we do, or water, or things like that, other than to maybe sort of facilitate growth in a way different from our own, because they would get bigger
Right.
after maturity. There would be no actual maturity. They would just keep going and going if they could constantly add more minerals to the outside of their surface and sprout off more facets and things like that. Alien life is going to be just, talk about gonzo. Alien life is almost dependent on gonzo ideas to come up with something new
Well, we wouldn't
that
have
hasn't.
the mimic without sci-fi writers. I know Gary gets the credit, but we would not have the mimic if people hadn't. I I know there's at least two stories, and I'm pretty sure I read them both. And there's one where there's a park bench like critter on some planet in the solar system that we've colonized. It's that kind of story,
Mhm.
and it eats people. It's evolved to look like a park bench to eat people. And I cannot remember who wrote it. I can't remember the book, but it was a book I actually had, and it was an older sci-fi story. And then there's the one that you can actually find and you can go read it. That was in Galaxy magazine in June. I'd have to go find the year, but it's called the I think it's called The Colony, and they land on a planet, looks good, can't find any dangerous life forms, and then things start happening. Objects start doing things they're not supposed to do, and it's not good for the humans. And they're basically mimics, you know. And when
And
they're
don't
not,
forget
yeah,
the classic The Thing.
yep, mimic,
That was mimics, pumped up with steroids, I think, but
yeah,
still,
yeah,
and that would be.
doppelganger, mimic.
Or do we do chalk? That's not a bad idea, Cal. I was
Schulp.
actually thinking
I
about
don't
that.
have Schulp, but I'm game. Just tell me how to play. I'll play it.
No, it's not really. Depending on how you look at it, it's more of a setting than a system. Uh, kind of kind of dependent on, or based around like
It's
5e
on
or
my to
3e.
get list. but I got a lot of things
Oh,
on my get list, and I got a lot of bills. So I
once
got to be good.
you bought your first, and I've got
So
Salt
good.
1 and
So
2 back
hard.
here. Um,
I just drool. I just drool. I want in.
Salt 1 and 2, and I'm going to read 3 this month because I'm done with Top Secret. I got to do my summation of Top Secret tomorrow. But yeah, Chalt Venger is he's a funny guy on camera, but when he puts pen to paper, he's 10 times funnier and a really nice down to earth guy.
No, yeah, I took a look at his some of this stuff that I got for free, like the escalating crit, the oh the race. There's one where it's a race, it's a racing game, and then
Oh,
based
really?
on roll. Oh yeah, that one's awesome. Yeah,
I
you
don't
can just
have that
drop
one.
that on any
I've
planet.
got a
You're
bunch of
doing
his stuff.
sci-fi, man, and it's and then each
I've
player
got like
rolls
6 of his books.
a percentile
I,
dice. It's a little PDF download, and you roll the percentile dice, and then it tells you where you are in the race and what's happening when you get to the spot in the race, and it's just reading through it. It's a hoot. You'd like it a lot. I we'll have to figure out a way to have the play group have that race. I think we'll have to do it without any minors night.
yeah, definitely. It's even Jackie at
Old grown ups.
14, 15, almost 16 is not a fan of the artwork of that Venger chooses to put in his stuff. Some of it I've showed him. He's like, wow, that's really good. And then he saw other stuff and he was that's degenerate garbage. I need to go wash my eyes with holy water.
Yeah, yeah, the sleaze part.
But he's that way in that age, and someday he may be more like me. I hope not. He can be his own little person. Who's almost taller than me, but he is. If you just go by the words that Venger writes, he's awesome. Speaking of awesome,
hey, who's awesome?
Hey,
You're
hey,
awesome.
Bear.
That's who's awesome.
I was saying,
Yeah.
speaking of who's
Well,
awesome,
you need giant monsters in space. Back to our subject that we keep wandering off of, because
what do you
then you
think?
can have
Giant,
you can have superheroes fight the giant monsters in space. What
do you think?
And you have an excuse for giant robot things that people pilot in space. And my dog's going off.
I'm trying to figure out who's fighting a wolf in the background. Starro. You've been talking about all these giant monsters all night. Starro.
Was that like a DC Comics thing?
Yep.
Okay, with the starfish on the face.
But it comes from a giant starfish, which is
Right.
the parent of it. So there you go. There's a freebie. I saw someone earlier mentioned Orca. Great movie.
Yep.
Farrah Fawcett gets her leg bit off.
That was I was remembering that idea of there's been so many big critters in sci-fi. Galactus is another great giant space monster that is.
He's not a space monster. He's God.
Well,
the entire point of Galactus was Jack Kirby said, I want to have God fight the Fantastic Four. And they said, you can't have God fight I want to have God. No. So he drew him
they already
on
had
his hat.
Captain Christo. Remember him? Remember
What?
Captain Christo? Captain Christo or Christo. Captain.
No.
It's a thing. Marvel Comics.
I believe
Check it out. See if you can find it. It was something. I'm just going to say it was something because I don't know what to call it.
But Galactus isn't a monster. Galactus is something else.
Well, in the way that a human can be a monster.
Well, okay, but then at that measure, we're going to say the Celestials as well. Then.
Sure.
Oh,
well, let me ask you this: Do either of them need like machines so that they can exist in space, or do they just happen to wear machines, but they can just hang out in space and not need air and gravity and things like that?
Galactus doesn't need machines to live in space, and Celestials wear those weird armors, but no one knows what the Celestials look like under those weird armors, so they could just be those weird armors for all we know.
Right. And So yeah, you can have big things in space, and it can justify having big people in space, or big ships in space, or big
Sure.
robots in space, and it can be great fun. And like I said, I mean, on a if you're using miniature ships, this is big.
There's
This
Starro
is a
right there
big
for you, right?
monster,
No, the
right?
Zentradi from Robotech and
Yep.
Macross. They're giants.
But because I was kind of going for the things that could live in a vacuum without help.
Yeah. Well, I vote
You know,
asteroid.
like alien life
What are
forms.
what's the name of the
Sorry.
space whales that they use in Marvel? The Shi'ar deal with
Oh
them.
yes, yeah,
The Aka, oh my god, what are they called? I
yeah.
can't
They
remember
got
now.
Well, there was
yeah. I
Tin
mean,
Man
it's
and
all over
Next
the place.
Generation,
Yeah, they
and
stole
there
that
was
from Marvel.
you think so?
Oh, they absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
I don't
everything gets
remember.
recycled and stolen and then regurgitated and
So
recycled.
Marvel's had the Akanti. What was the first appearance of the Akanti? Let's see.
Yeah, Bear, I'm
First
gonna
appearance of
let
the
you handle
Akanti
the
were
comics because I'm behind on
1982.
comics.
Next Gen doesn't have 10 man until the late
What
80s, early 90s.
what comic was that in? X-Men?
Uncanny X-Men number 156.
I should have that.
Well, aren't
I
you a
don't
bragger?
remember because my oldest issue is I think 101 of the X-Men.
So if we look at the image of the Akanti, give me a second. There you go, sharing it with you now. And then think about Tin Man.
Okay,
You know what I
totally.
mean? Totally ripped off.
Well, I mean, could you get inside that and fly it around
Yep.
like a ship?
No, they built things on top of them. That was the difference.
Okay.
But long before Tin Man, they did the space whale that latched onto the Enterprise.
The nacelles, right? We were talking about that as well. So that's what I was shooting for is things like that. The Tyranid from Games Workshop, even some of the critters from the Godzilla movies appeared to be able to fly through space or whatever.
Well, someone had mentioned earlier in your chat Moya from Farscape.
Yeah. I didn't know the name of it because I'd never seen the show. I mean, I've seen clips, and I got the impression that it was a
Welcome back, Mom.
biological critter that could go travel through space. And like we were talking about earlier on your show, Bear, most of the H.P. Lovecraft giant,
Oh yeah.
Cthulhu and Hastur, and those guys were, apparently oblivious to the needs of.
Oh, what's the name of the sleeping mad god? Azathoth or something?
Azathoth
Yeah.
he's more like he's more like a living white hole or black hole. He's like a stellar phenomenon.
He's surrounded by mad pipers. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Living planets, living stars.
Yeah, Ego, the living planet. There you go.
Solaris. Okay.
So how likely would you be to the Brood? I don't know if they needed.
No, the
ships.
brood needed ships to travel in space, and they weren't giants. They were small. They were, they were like pony sized.
We did talk about the Tyranid,
Hold on, guys.
which is almost taking all of these ideas and coalescing them into one perfect species.
Ooh, remember the video game Sinistar?
Vaguely, yeah.
That big head that you had to try and become. Oh, you'd be like, oh fuck, Sinistar's after. There you go.
As well as we did touch on. Sorry about the racetrack, folks. The bugs from Starship Troopers.
They're not big, and they use spores to populate, so I wouldn't call them spacefaring.
I could have swore they had something like really big.
No, in the books, they were actually technological users.
Mm-hmm.
They use technology. In the movie, they use spores
Okay.
which is really weird. Like, they don't make any sense in the.
No, none whatsoever. I mean, other than if you want to take panspermia to its weirdest conclusion.
The neat thing that people tend to miss in the movie is that Buenos Aires, that was a false flag. How the fuck did the bugs send an asteroid from one side of the galaxy to the other when they don't even have spacefaring? So people think, Buenos Aires, the bugs, they sent a Klendathu meteorite. Well, a Klendathu is light years away. So how the fuck did they send it?
didn't they once show in the movie them shooting
Yeah, but
things
that's
that
just
hit?
plasma. That wouldn't launch. That wouldn't send a fucking rocket light speed across the galaxy.
Man,
So it's a
Yeah,
false
yeah.
flag,
Good
and
point.
no one mentions
Point.
it. No one ever talks about it, but it's a total false
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah,
It's a
I saw the movie,
that
so
wouldn't
yeah.
surprise me actually. So would you ever do that in one of your superhero games?
Do what?
Throw a big giant space critter?
I don't tend to do space a lot in my superhero stuff. I tend to do more grounded stuff. But if I was doing space, absolutely. Oh, wait, in Robotech, the Marduk or
Invid?
whatever it's called, the giant eye planet thing that the Zentradi are controlled by.
Yeah,
The
that's a
Masters?
giant space creature,
Or is
yeah.
it the
The
Masters?
Masters?
No, it's that big eye thing in space that looks like a volcano with an eye, and it's like a living creature. It's called Marduk or something. It's their god.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
remember that.
they started out as
Micronians?
yeah, and then
Oh, it's
being
Marduk. Pardon me,
yeah,
Marduk. That's the
yeah, and then
race.
there's
No,
a
but what was
whole
that? What was that
convoluted
big
history, yeah,
thing?
with that.
Or
That
was the
giant.
Invid? Because
No, the
that
Invid didn't have that. No, the Invid were their own thing.
Yeah,
right.
they were their own thing.
What the hell was that big giant space eye thing in Robotech? Man, I
Yeah,
can't.
I think they started out as basically, trying to deal with the, alien invasion, and then
Right.
because you know
Because
how it
I
goes,
actually
all
followed
goes
Robotech
wrong.
pretty heavily into the paperback books, comic books, etc. But I just don't remember that.
And
I'll
then
find a picture
that's
of it.
why they had the rule about not
Messing with the
interfering with the
Micronians.
microbes. Yeah, because they were supposed to be, I think, protecting them, and then by the time that they find Macronians, everything's gone,
I
sideways
thought the
from
Robotech
there.
Masters were Micronians to some
Yeah,
extent.
that's what they started as. Yeah, and yeah, so that's why everybody was genetically compatible
Mhm.
because everybody's basically human.
Yeah, I think with aliens in superheroes, it's kind of like one of those big sort of crossover, uh, big showdowns at the end. Kind of, it builds up to that. Where the superheroes have to go and do some sort of commando
This
thing
thing.
that
The
Well,
hell
there's
is this?
always the Ultraman type
Ultraman's the
thing.
best for
Yeah,
that.
Ultraman's the best, man.
we've got
You
both
know,
sets
and
of
the
What was this?
aliens are out, out there, and
Look,
then the
remember this?
alien
What was
monsters come
this?
to Earth.
I don't
It,
remember that. Oh
it,
my
it
god,
had this big eye, and the
I
fleet
love that.
flew around it. I can't remember what the
I
hell this
just
thing
feel
was.
that like crazy.
Now that's a good creepy thing to let loose on spaceships. Hey, you come across this, you misjumped.
Nerds, I think that wasn't that kind of a thing with the Phoenix saga where when Jean Grey offed herself but didn't, I guess, whatever.
Oh no, aliens have been around in superhero comics since the Golden Age.
Oh, absolutely. They're
Yeah,
it's like peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and
aliens were
chocolate,
in the Conan books for
clam and
goodness
tuna
sake.
fish.
So anything's possible, man. In
What was
anybody's
that
universe.
from?
That's
What
why
was
when people say, "Well, the universe was formed by two warring dragons," that's weird. I said, "Nah, you clearly haven't been reading comic strips or ancient sci-fi books or fantasy books
telling you
because
guys
you get
mining
into them, they're going to be going, well, that's weird."
mining the
Anyway,
past for great.
I gotta head to bed, but I promised I'd come and say hi when we were done the movies. So we're done the movies.
Appreciate
So
it.
I
How
come
was the
to say
movies, by
hi.
the way?
Oh, it was fun. We had a good time.
Good, good.
I asked Nerds Nerd. She was hanging out. She was doing double duty. She was hanging out here talking to you guys, and she was watching the movies.
Nerds,
Shadows hunting ghosts. Oh no!
when I'm walking up the stairs with my
I know.
laptop because I had to have a smoke break because I don't smoke inside.
Did you see it right there at the door frame? I love that's my favorite thing. Sorry to sidetrack you really quickly, but that's what I love about ghost videos. The ghosts are always so shy, and they're always peeking around corners playing peekaboo. It's like, yeah, no,
Nerds makes a good point about humans being space orcs. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
I think I'm tired of that trope. I think I'm really tired of the idea
Well,
that
we're just the unwashed masses that nobody wants out in space.
yeah, I
Do
just think we're just fucking nothing. You know, we're
do
just
you
another
guys remember
biological life
real
form.
quick before you go, Bear? I think it was Outer Limits or Tales from the Dark Side, A Small Talent for War.
That's from the 1980s Twilight Zone. It was a short. And it was John Glover as the alien going, "You have a small talent for war." So Dabney
I thought
Coleman
that was
rallies
John
the
Q.
world.
Delancey.
I'm pretty sure it was on
I could have swore it was Q.
no. It was John Glover.
Really?
I'm
Why is my
pretty sure. Let's find out. John
Well, I could
Glover.
have sworn because it stuck with me for
It could be. It could be John Delancey, but John Delancey was
because it was like
no
one of the few things.
John Glover is Alien Ambassador. Small Talent for War was in the
Really?
televisions
Why
of the
did I think it
Twilight
was
Zone.
all
It
these
was
years?
John
My
Glover.
brain has just been misfiring on that. But think about it this way:
The
how
Carl
cool would
Sagan book was about I think the Carl, if I remember it, that sci-fi book Carl Sagan wrote, where the aliens make contact and they give Earth an ultimatum to change their ways, and so everybody thinks that they're supposed to do like the Vulcan thing. We'll get rational, we'll get logical, we'll solve world hunger, and become peaceful people and all that stuff. And in the end, it's like, no, you were supposed to become more warlike.
Well,
That's
that's the thing in Small Town for War is they show up and they say, you know, we bred you, and we usually find our people that we've bred, and we bring them into our, our collective. But unfortunately, you have a small talent for war. They're like, give us 48 hours. Give us 48 hours. I'm like, okay, we will. And in 48 hours, they get world peace, and they give it to John Glover's the young guy. He goes, oh, no. We breed warriors, and you have a very small talent for war, so we're going to start over. But take solace in the fact that you amused us in your final moments. It's like the
how
most
cool would it have
cold
been
ass thing.
how cool would it have been if that part had been played by John Q. Delancey?
I think John Glover did a really good job of it. Well,
Well,
anyway, here I'll
you
throw
might-
it. I'll throw it in the private chat if you want to share it with people. It's a 9-minute short, and you can watch it on YouTube.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Anyway, again, I gotta go to bed, boys and girls, boils and ghouls. So thanks for having me on, and hope you
no
had a
problem.
great night.
Anytime, you're always welcome. Hope to
And,
see
thanks.
you Monday
What's going on
over on
Monday?
the Hungar Show.
Well, it depends, man. Work is like
Yeah,
he
but
always
work.
streams when it's like the middle of my day, and I'm like, you know. But
I'll
I'll
be
try.
working.
I always
Okay,
try.
I'm gonna watch that after the show. Thanks for
You paste it in the wrong place.
That'll be fun.
Anyway,
no,
bye guys. Have a
Bye.
good night.
Take care.
You too.
That was when Take Care Bear. Yeah.
Yeah, I just there's no reason not to
My
have
name is
giant
Care
monsters.
Bear. Just saying that would be weird. And Nerd says I could watch WW Stomp on WW2 Baddies all day long. Yeah. I'm just saying the this literally the sky's the limit, and I'm gonna do my best to bring more of that to my games. I you know
I mean,
I am running a fantasy RPG right now, but I'm going to throw some big, nasty, ridiculous, gonzo, release the Kraken kind of thing for my players. But I do want to get some sci-fi in before the end of this year, and you know, dragons are for me they're kind of old, you know, stale if you will, and I still yes it was. Wonder Woman punching tanks to death was fantastic. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have one actually one really old Wonder Woman comic book, and I think she was doing that in it. But yeah, giant space creatures. Why the hell not?
right, and I mean that's why we have the big, you don't, we have the big monsters on the planet too. I mean, whether it's dinosaurs or whatever. I mean, everybody loves the big dinosaur. They're good,
Except Bear.
scary
Bear hates
things.
dinosaurs. So, but
Yeah,
you know
very
what?
expensive. But
I do like dinosaurs. They're just they're mysterious. They're terrifying. They're primal. They're what do you do? What did other creatures do? That weren't other giant dinosaurs. Assuming for a moment that men and dinosaurs lived together clearly not in harmony like Dinotopia or whatever that nonsense was. But even that
Oh,
was
it'd be
kind of a neat
insane.
idea if it hadn't been
Eat
so kid
lunch.
friendly. Right.
Eat lunch,
Land
man.
of the Lost, that was great. I mean, who didn't love
Oh,
that show? Land of the Lost was the best, wasn't it?
land lost, man. Yeah. What's the sleep stack?
Oh
Yeah.
man, I used to scare the crap out of Jackie with that. He didn't even know what I was doing. I was just doing
I love the sleep stack. Yeah, I love them.
Sleep Stack
They were
and
the best
Enoch.
part of it. And Enoch, yeah. I love the reptile dudes, man. When people talk to me about lizard dudes, I'm just like, yeah, sleep stack. And
And,
and and
and,
I
and
and the Gorn. I like the Gorn too. The old Gorn. The old
oh,
sorry,
they
not
were
the old.
way better than the Gorn. They were.
The new Gorn are like weird, really weird. But the old Gorn, I you know.
Yes, Raven. Land of the Lost was epic. But the best thing about Land of the Lost, not just Enoch, when you realize where he got his name, Enoch from the pseudepigrapha and things like that, but were the other weird episodes, especially after the dad left and the uncle took his place, which was just freaking weird as hell. There were some episodes because a lot of the Land of the Lost were written by very famous sci-fi writers.
Like
I
yeah,
can't
yeah. Didn't they have like well Enoch had the weird little thing with the crystals and let's
exactly to open the
see,
portals. He was like the
the portal dude.
yeah, right. And all of the ideas that were going on in that show that were so above the average 12 to 16-year-old kid watching that
Didn't they
show.
have like the talking skulls and stuff too? I mean, there was a
Oh, you
lot
might
of
be
weird
right.
stuff in that
What one of the
in Land of the
weirdest
Lost.
that I remember, God, who was that guy who wrote the sci-fi magazine? Really famous, grouchy author. He had that little digest magazine that came out every month. I forget his name. He was really famous back in the day. Um,
I've
it was
read
like
a lot of old
it was
digests,
like it was like a
but
TV guide sized magazine. Remember the old TV
right,
guide?
yeah,
Um,
galaxies like that.
but it was like
There's other
it was
ones. There's other ones like weird,
someone will hit me up
weird
later what the
stories,
author
strange
was.
stories. There's like a bunch of them that have.
But no, it was like it had his name on it. It was like his magazine.
Oh,
Not amazing, but it was like God, I want to say Doc Smith, but I know it wasn't him. But it was just like such and such, you know. But one of the episodes had that guy whose costume was basically like a black tight skin suit, so you couldn't see him because he was always in the dark, but it was covered with like little mirrors. Remember that guy?
hmm.
They found this like derelict, like I want to say almost a spaceship or something in this weird other part of the Land of the Lost, or maybe even another planet or something. And Holly
Sounds
was
familiar because I was like totally hooked on Land of the Lost when
in the
when I was
last
younger.
season. They just went freaking way out there, and there was this guy from like another dimension or something, and it was just all these little mirrors on this black suit so that the lights would bounce off it and you couldn't see his actual form, but because the mirrors were all over his
Yeah, in
suit.
my head, I'm seeing it, so I must have seen the episodes, but I've long
I've
since
got it all
forgotten the
on a
details.
VHS. I bootlegged it many years ago. Of course, I don't have a VHS, but I'm gonna go and grab that one of these days and just binge watch all. There are Slee Stack miniatures available from Forge of Ice Miniatures. Well, let me write that down because if I don't have Slee Stack miniatures, what am I doing with
You
my
know,
life?
make that note. Make that note, Shadow.
You know what? If you guys saw my notes from doing these shows with you guys, you'd be
Forge of Ice
freaking amazed,
Miniatures, huh?
especially when you realize how many of my notes I haven't followed up on. But let me write this down.
Why is the microphone? That's weird. Oh.
Don't worry, Raven. I won't buy them until after my birthday. Jesus Christ. Putting limitations on my freaking miniature freaking budget. Forge of Ice.
Yeah, we're all addicted. Well, there's just so many cool minis. I mean, come on, guys. So yes, it is an easy way to go broke.
If not, I will remind you. Thank you, Cal. I can always count on you to help me spend my money.
Yes, right, Cal.
mighty nice of you. No, I mean, just again, imagine the Slee Stack, riding the dinos, and chasing down Will and Holly with
Yeah,
your player
yeah, they
characters.
should have had like
Uh,
sleek stacked domestic animals. I never understood. They had to, I get it that their civilization had collapsed to a certain extent and all that. But um, they still should have had, some domestic critters. But then you got TV budgets, so that was probably a thing.
oh,
But if they did
absolutely. But
if they did Land of Lost today, imagine what they could do with it.
as long as they didn't do it like they did the one with Will Ferrell, while that movie
Yeah,
was amusing, it wasn't what I wanted, nor any of the actual true fans of the show. And let's face it, uh, they did all that stuff to be able to, you know, draw the adults in the room to go, hey, the show my kids watching is pretty badass. I realize, the Will and Holly, thing was kind of, for the kids, but the other concepts that were going on with the time travel, interdimensional travel,
right.
and all that sort of thing was really
Well,
amazing.
we
And if you
we've
deep dive
talked
into
about how bad TV's gotten programming. It doesn't even matter if it's
and
cable or
that
not.
was considered garbage at the time. It really was that all the Sid and Marty
And
Krofft was really considered, just absolute bottom of the barrel entertainment. But that one show, although I will give it up for Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, because who wouldn't, was so far above
there was one I liked. It only did the one season. You know how that goes. And uh,
Shrinker.
that one, I don't remember the name of it, but I remember the premise. So you got your family. So in that respect, it's like Land of the Lost.
Part two.
And well, it was because of pyramid power. Okay, and they get sent into another dimension of another Earth where the Roman and ancient Roman Empire continued forward, and Egypt continued forward as civilizations, and in which the Romans were then in charge of. So they went to like an alternate version of this world, and they were stuck there, and in their station wagon kind of situation. And I forget. I mean, they because the other world, it has cars, it has all that stuff too.
Oh,
So but they're bringing in American concepts into a society that does not function that way at all. So
okay,
so like the silver dollars we have that has presidents' heads, that emperor's heads on it.
okay.
Um, so they introduced rock and roll. That's one of the things they
Oh,
introduced. Oh God, yeah, and people are
Lord,
playing the
okay,
albums backwards, and and saying all kinds of stuff about them. Oh yeah,
so
it was
basically the
actually really fun.
leather togas and spikes and stuff.
It was, yeah, it was a really, and the government's threatened by them, yeah, and they just
I
want to go home. You know,
I
you
don't
know.
remember this at all. This sounds like I
Yeah, it
need.
was this really short series. Didn't do well. That was when like the whole Egyptian thing was hot because of I think
King Tut.
Tutankhamun's, yeah, King Tut, yeah, and but it was a cool idea. That a pyramid zaps you to another dimension, you and your family, more or less, and I forget
Yeah,
why it happened.
both sound like precursors to Sliders. Sliders was
Yeah,
another one of my favorite shows.
Sliders were
I
fun.
would love to do a game like that. I've done a couple like that, but I twisted it around a bit. But the whole idea of dimension hopping, as Bear knows, that's going to be Jackie and my superpower in his game and in the Arduin game, where we're going to make an appearance. The idea of going, since Earth is kind of, it's kind of done when it comes to real adventure. You know, unless you're going to go deep into the Amazon jungles or Antarctica, there aren't too many underwater. I suppose there aren't too many places left where there's that kind of mystery and adventure waiting, to be experienced. You've got to go somewhere else, and space is kind of not really doing it for us until we, finally get to Mars or something. All you have left is alternate realities and dimensions and things like that, which take your random group of Earthlings, who have no business being on an adventure, except for that one guy who made the device, of course, and
Right, the
accidentally
one guy. And he just might be
accidentally
super
brings the
smart.
pizza
That's all.
guy,
Super nerd.
you know, accidentally brings his daughter, the pizza guy, and two other random, humans, maybe a cop
The
or
mailman delivering the mail,
oh my god, that's great. And so next thing you know, they're in ancient Rome or future Rome or something like that, and then out of nowhere come the giant freaking space monsters. Who just want to be in a game like that, right? Uh, you know, I
Regular people dealing with extraordinary problems.
we used to call those victim games, as per the Palladium game had this from their Beyond the Supernatural. There's a tiny little section in the first edition which they cut out, which is just a crying shame, where you would literally make up characters, mundane, normal people, and then throw them into a horror situation. Where it's just a matter of how you die, not if you die, kind of thing, kind of
Yep.
Call of Cthulhu, but modern. And we used to love playing those. Those were like some of the only one shots we would play would be
Yeah, well,
those.
yeah, we're back to the whole dying is bad thing of the modern people, and they do not I really don't think a lot of the newer game masters and players understand that there is a hilarious joy in knowing that you're going to go play a game that will probably kill your player character. You know? But you're
You
not
know,
the only one, and it's all about at that point who gets the furthest along.
right? It's
While everybody's rooting for their death because they've already died. You're gonna die next. You're gonna die next.
I know, right, right. We used to do. It's sad because the only time I could really, after a certain point, get away with that was Halloween. Is that
Yep.
messed up? It's like,
Yep.
okay, we're gonna play a victim game. Who's in? Oh, Halloween, yeah, I'm in. You know,
The Metamorphosis Alpha game, I straight up said it's incredibly deadly. It's not like the other games we've been playing. The potential for everyone to die is high. The fact that only one person died, I mean, a character died, that was actually pretty successful little adventure. They
or
did
or
burn
an
down part
abject
of the ship.
failure, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. But no,
Being
I don't set out to kill. I don't set out to kill people, but they do stuff that
You
might
know
get
what
them
though?
killed,
To
but
be
then they get
honest,
killed.
there is nothing wrong with that. If you guys go into the game, then the GM says, "I'm going to kill you all tonight." All right, awesome. There is a time and place for that. You can
Yep.
actually get people, the right people, I suppose, who are like, you know what? Okay, sure, let's do it. Go ahead, take your best shot, DM. I'm going to kill you all tonight. Okay. If you go into it, as opposed to back in the old day when we had that crappy DM who thought that was his goal, was to kill you all.
Well, that's also a new DM syndrome usually.
Yes.
Because usually at some point they grow out of that because they discover it's not as that it's not satisfying to be the adversarial DM all the time. If you
Absolutely.
have stayed stuck there maturity wise, then yeah, there's a problem. But most DMs go past that because for a variety of reasons that they figure out that's not the way. Yeah.
No, it
But
wasn't. It really wasn't meant to be like that. But yet, somewhere, the wires got crossed, and people thought that was the case. There are plenty of
yeah,
games
yeah,
that was the case.
yeah, me
Here's
too.
a perfect example. You're playing Zargon, the evil dungeon master, trying to kill the players, but there were rules to make it fair. But you know, why the heck not? And do it with giant
But if
space
everybody
monsters.
knows if everybody knows that's what they're going in for, yeah, yeah, then
Then
it's okay.
it's
So like if you have a setting that you tell people straight up, there's giant monsters in it that might eat you. I mean, like your whole ship and stuff, and everybody knows that there's giant monsters in space, and that's why they don't stray from the shipping lanes. You know, you know, you know. But you being you, and the fact that the law's after you, you're gonna take these alternate routes. you know,
Why the heck not? I mean,
no. Then
you know,
then everybody knows the potential's there.
especially after playing a bunch, like say you've been in a campaign for 6 months to a year, and you're like, you know what? All right, time for the kaiju. Enough of this. Skullduggery, spy versus spy, cloak and dagger, sneaking around and doing the shady stuff. Now we're going to do something that's just, man versus monster in space. You and your little ragtag crew and your little 100-ton scout ship and this giant space amoeba. What do you do?
Right.
How do you get out of it? Kind of
Like
thing.
this big giant space octopus, right? I mean, we've all seen the pictures, the art of the sailing ships being,
Oh
the
yeah,
tentacles all around them, right. And that's a whole thing. If you got the whole ship thing going on
sure
in
do.
your pirate and fantasy type settings. Um, Heck, you could even have that in 1800 setting, if besides pirates, it could just be no
Or
pirates
or
or even
space.
modern ship. Yeah, they discovered krakens are real, but anything like that can be transported up into space easily enough. I mean, you just change the monster up and sci-fi it up, and boom, it's out there grabbing spaceships. And now you find yourself and your crew dealing with it, you know?
Even if you're on the planet, you land on a vac world, do a survey for minerals and what have you, and next thing you know, somebody gets sucked into something they think is quicksand, and then the quicksand rises up out, and now wants to have a full seven
Gobble.
course player character meal instead of just a little snack that was your engineer. Uh,
How fast can you run?
in a spacesuit on point 0.5 gravity world.
Yeah, get those jumps going.
Jump, swoop.
Well, that's the thing I try to remind people too is whatever's good for the players is good for the monsters and NPCs too. I mean, when you stop and think about it, I mean, so like if you got a bad guy that gets killed, but the player characters can get resurrected, why can't the bad guy's minions get him resurrected?
Well, because I don't let resurrection happen in my games.
But you see what I'm saying? When
Oh,
you're running those kind of games, you know, especially if he's a high, well, the people are like, well, his lieutenant's going to take over. Well, okay, you could do that. Or the lieutenant could be just a fanboy, big time, and yeah, he's going to resurrect his dead boss. I mean, it's just the way it is. Or her lieutenant. Um, why can't you have them, have clones? You,
mhm.
did you kill the real one? Maybe not. I mean, if the player characters can have clones, like in a sci-fi game or even in a fantasy game, then the bad guys can have clones. I mean,
Oh
that's the
yeah,
deal.
it's sort of like Dungeon Mastering 101. You got to make that bad guy. Uh, you got to
Hard
have
to
that.
kill.
Tasha Yar didn't do nothing. I was
Yeah,
thinking something along that line. Yeah, you've got to make that bad guy that can keep coming back. At
that's
some
right.
point, got to have the Professor Moriarty, the Doctor Doom, something like that. You've got to have that at least once in
At
a
least one,
campaign.
yeah, one bad guy that. What do you mean he's not dead? We killed him.
Dracula or something. Just uh, it just makes perfect sense. It's great writing. Even if it is campy or schlocky, to some extent, you got to have that. And how about a giant space monster that does that? It keeps chasing you across the galaxy.
One little piece of it survives and it regenerates.
Right, right. Or it just does the ultimate DM move and it just teleports out and says, "Screw you guys, I'm going home. And
Yeah, and
you
then
know,
comes back later. Yep. I mean, yeah. So yeah, DMs, we got to protect our pets, right?
you're just doing them a favor. You
Yeah.
know, you're giving them some, you know, because we all love to hate that one
Well,
guy.
the Borg are that way. I mean, as a threat, the Borg are that way. I mean, they if you don't properly kill the Borg nanonites, they regenerate enough to infect more people. You know?
And let's be honest, who back in the day when it first aired did not call their buddies during the commercial breaks going, "Oh my god, did you see that?" You know, knowing full well they're sitting glued to their TV set at the same time
Yeah.
just waiting for the commercial to just, you know, gossip, whatever you want to call it, about, the latest Borg episode.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was
I've got to go make dinner.
No
I've
worries.
got
You
a
know what?
family to feed.
We just hit the 2 hour
Got it.
mark, and I wanted to
Yeah.
keep it kind of short because I don't know how many minutes or hours I have left on the channel for StreamYards for this month, and I don't want to buy a subscription, but I probably will. But no worries, Grandma. It was wonderful talking to you. Keep up with me and Cal and OGGM on Discord. Anybody else in the California area who wants to do something really goofy, and you know what, maybe we might, invite some other folks in if we can't find enough, California, because it's the West Coast thing, not to be, to exclude anybody, but it was just sort of this thought experiment, to see what it would be like to play with a bunch of weirdo Californians. But let me know what you guys think. Grandma, thank you so much. Say hi to the fam for me. Have a great weekend. Everybody else out there in TV land, thanks for playing along and sticking around. We love you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow with my last top secret episode, probably ever. No, I'll do more later next year or something. But it's nothing personal. Say the Borg. Thanks, Mercurius. Everybody else, like I said, we love you out there in TV land. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this weekend. Spring is in the air, like I said earlier. Get some gaming in, roll some dice. Hit me up in the chat or in Discord. Let me know what's going on, what you guys thought of tonight. And if you got any ideas for next week, I've got some ideas brewing, but I'm always more than willing to take suggestions from you guys. If there's something you'd like to hear us talk about when it comes to sci-fi, we did the giant space monsters, got that out of my system. And have a great weekend, guys. Of course, happy trails.